Ann Lee, why does the U.S. have so much to learn from China? Have we fallen behind that much, or have they just powered ahead that much?
China and the U.S. are two great nations, and China's learned a lot from the U.S. But learning is a two-way street. We certainly have been the superpower for the last 50 years, but that doesn't mean that we're perfect. There's plenty we can do to improve our situation and make ourselves stronger. And so that is the message of the book. It's about figuring out what is happening outside our borders that are best practices that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can actually look to see what works outside and look at the results and figure out a way to test drive them here in the US.
What would you say the #1 lesson that the United States needs to learn from China is?
Today, I think that the US suffers from short-termism, in that there's too much short-term thinking, not enough long-term vision. Our economy right now is very driven by Wall Street's demand for short-term profits. Our politicians work in 2-year election cycles. We need to institutionalize a way to make sure that we have a long-term strategic plan in place. The Chinese have something called the 5-year plan. And this is a terrific goal-setting exercise that they use to set targets for where they want to be in the future. And so if they, for example, want to increase the number of college graduates, they will put a number attached to that. If they want to increase the number of social workers, they will say, we want to increase it by this percentage. The US can do the same thing. Our current federal budget doesn't attach goals to any of the departments that we give money to. Wouldn't it be great if instead of money that we pour into various departments go into a black hole, if we said, no, you can have money, but you have to perform and deliver these results? I think that would go a long way into developing more transparency in the federal budget and hold government officials more accountable.
But wouldn't it be better to let the market use its magic to find the right number of people in any particular industry? Because we've seen the demise of the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc countries, and we've seen what a command economy can do, and we found out that capitalism is better. So why would a 5-year plan with setting individual employee counts work better than what we have here in the US, albeit with its problems?
The way the Chinese use the 5-year plan is very different from the Soviet command and control that they used. So what I'm suggesting is that we take this policy and adopt it into a democratic capitalist system. Having performance targets is not a crazy idea. When we look at all the corporations here in the United States, they have strategic plans. The CEO doesn't give money to a department and not demand some kind of result from it. And that's what I'm saying. Yes, the market can do its work, but it's not always the most efficient way, and especially in the government. How can the market affect the government departments? So this is a way to hold government officials more accountable.
One big thing that people are watching about China right now is the fact that they could have their own real estate bust over there. We keep hearing about investors like Jim Chano saying, look, there's a lot of bad loans in China, and that's going to hurt them. What's your view?
I have no doubt that there are areas that could be exhibiting bubble-like conditions. But the fact of the matter is that China has so many millions of housing units they need to develop for their population that is migrating from the rural to the urban areas that is going to continue for at least 10 more years, that these units will be used eventually. And so this may be a temporary blip that they have invested a great deal very quickly in anticipation of this future demand. But like the US, where we've had various bumps along history, I don't see this derailing the Chinese government.
And then finally, not too long ago, back in the 80s, we kept hearing that Japan was the country we needed to emulate because of the whole Japanese boom, which eventually turned into a bust. Will this happen with China?
I'm not going to make those sort of predictions. My book is about best practices and things we can learn. However, if people wonder, is China just like Japan? I explain in my book, it's different in a number of ways because Japan is a very closed society, and when they were ascending into power, all their exports were just in Japan. Today, with the internet that allows for global outsourcing and offshoring, the situation is very different. China takes in a lot of foreign direct investment into the country, and therefore the economy is much more complex, and therefore it's not an easy analogy to make.